On today's show, the Bulls get right against the Bucks. Does Chicago's overtime win say more about them or the supposed contender? Plus, the Warriors bounce back, the Heat storm back, and we have some suggestions to improve the in-season tournament. All of that and more on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Wes Goldberg here with Adam Mares. However you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Adam, we are recording this after midnight, at least my time, Eastern time. It was a fun night of Thursday hoops. We're going to get to as many of these games as we can, but we're going to start in Chicago. The Bulls win a fun one, beating the Bucks in overtime. Alex Caruso making a game-tying three-pointer to send the game into overtime. No Zach LaVine, no DeMar DeRozan for the Bulls, but Nikola Vucevic steps up, scores 29 points. What was your takeaway from this one?
My takeaway was this game was awesome. I mean, this is one of those games, like a regular season game, a bad team in the Chicago Bulls playing at home in front of a fan base that desperately wants to feel good about something. They don't get to feel good about many things. Zach LaVine's out, DeMar DeRozan's out. You kind of punt on it. You're going up against the Bucks with Giannis. And yet you get this heroic performance, and it was filled with chaos. The fourth quarter of this game was like some of the best possessions were absolute chaos that ended with spectacular plays. My favorite one of all of them, you had Kobe White. The team for 22 seconds dribbles aimlessly around in the fourth quarter with like 2 minutes to go. Aimlessly around, can't figure anything out. Kobe White just steps back behind the three-point line, is like, screw it. He heaves a three-pointer and it goes in. This game was a bunch of those, including Alex Caruso's game tire to send it into overtime was also a prayer. It was an incredible game, and it was one of those games that doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things to the Bulls this season. But to those fans in that arena, it felt like they won the title because you could tell how bad they wanted this stupid game.
Alex Caruso, with LaVine and DeRozan out, he's like, hey, I get it. I need to be the man now. And so he came out there and started firing. He took 9 shots. That is so many for Alex Caruso in this game, but I love the
7 turnovers.
Hey, we don't need to talk about that. It's he's going to be traded for 2 first-round picks in February or something. So, but he had that falling away three-pointer coming off the screen. Reminded me of the Devin Booker one, except his was above the break and Devin Booker's was in the corner at Madison Square Garden. But it was just like, okay, Alex Caruso, like, live king, do your thing, like do your best Devin Booker impression. The fact that this game, it was a weird one. Like, Chicago was up by 12 early in the fourth, and then Milwaukee comes back, and then they kind of screw the pooch, and then Chicago comes back, hits the game-tying three. They win in overtime. Vucevic, it's like 29 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. That's a great night for Vucevic. Yeah. Does this say anything to you, or are we grasping for straws here that without LaVine and without DeRozan, that they were able to get a win over the Bucks, who like, this is a bad loss for the Bucks?
Well, it doesn't say the obvious thing. It doesn't say that, oh, this team is better without, those players, or those players are holding them back. But I do think it says something, and it probably says that this is a team that's in purgatory. And they were probably in purgatory over the summer and didn't address it. They came in thinking, okay, we'll just have a regular season. But on a night when you remove the 2 players most likely to be traded, or who lose the star players that, that everybody's talking about getting traded, when you remove those, it's almost like, all right, nothing to lose, no distraction.
Right.
Let's just go out there and play a game and play with energy and try to have fun. And that's what it felt like. So for me, that's all I think. But if they were, say, tonight to trade DeRozan and LaVine, I don't think we would get another performance like this all year from the group that was out there.
They probably know that, but they're also like, okay, we beat the Bucks now. Like, the Bulls will always, once it feels like they're on the brink of the absolute collapse, the very bottom, where they're like, okay, we got to push the big red button and blow this thing up. Yeah. They'll win a game like this, right? This is so Bullsy. Like, they'll just be like, oh, proof of concept. Like, we actually have enough. Look at our depth. Like, if we could just get the bench to step up like this with LaVine and DeRozan here, maybe we can actually cobble something together. And the answer is no. We've seen how this goes before.
On the other side of things, real quick, with Milwaukee, I'll just say this. They've had an unimpressive 13-6 start, and I know how ridiculous that sounds because you have a new coach and a new player. Of course, there was going to be some bumps along the way, but there's too much about them that I question. And I'll tell you the number one thing, because, okay, Giannis, Dame, Lopez, Middleton, that's a good, we know that group
wasn't a good Middleton game, but yeah.
Wasn't a good Middleton game, but I'm just saying as a core, like you can buy
sure.
that. But Malik Beasley being the fifth guy there, and I think eventually they probably hope it's, somebody else, Beauchamp or something, or maybe they try to make a trade.
Beauchamp's been good.
He has been good, but the idea that they need this floor spacer and it's Malik Beasley, he would be of all the teams that consider themselves contenders, he would feel the most out of place to me as a starter on one of those teams.
He is probably the weakest starter of all the quote unquote contenders right now, right? I mean, when everybody's healthy,
probably certainly Boston and Denver and Phoenix probably has an equivalent, like a Kogi or they have an equivalent to a Malik Beasley.
That's fair. Let's move on. Let's go to San Francisco. The Warriors beat the Clippers 120-114. They led by as many as 18, and they tried a little bit to give this one away, but it was not a repeat of the Sacramento Kings fiasco. They end up pulling away, get the win pretty handedly. Steph Curry leads the team with 26 points. Clay, a good game for him, 22 points. No Andrew Wiggins, who smashed his finger in a car door. First time I've seen that one on an injury report, Adam.
It's strange.
For the Clippers, Kawhi, 23 points. Harden had 18 points, 7 assists, but the Warriors got their biggest contributions from the bench. Big games for Dario Saric, Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski. Was this a step in the right direction for the Warriors, Adam?
Only if that direction is playing against the Clippers, who are perpetually stepping in the wrong direction. So I don't know. I mean, to me, this was more of a mid-off. Like, look, the Warriors has shown signs of looking like themselves for little spurts here, but in addition to not having Wiggins, this is on the heels of the Gary Payton news, which he might be back in a week now or reevaluated in a week, but he's a big piece for them. Like, to me, when I saw that news, part of me goes, man, how is Golden State going to survive? Now, originally it was indefinitely. You thought he might be out for a while. Maybe that's not the case. But the fact that Gary Payton II is a guy that could go down and you say, oh my God, how do they survive it? I don't know. So tonight, they beat up on a team who is sort of their equal in the Clippers, a team that hasn't necessarily inspired confidence throughout the year, and they beat them by 6 points at home. So,
and the Clippers I'm not impressed. Night of a back-to-back as well.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
It was. I'm with you. The Warriors needed a win. This sort of like it doesn't. The levee isn't broken yet, but I don't know that I feel any better about the Warriors. I still have all the same concerns that I had.
One thing I'm curious what you think, though. Kawhi Leonard, to me, he's the best player on that team. I think if you just polled everyone who's the best player on the Clippers, you'd say Kawhi. Because I think he is.
Yeah.
But he hasn't looked like that necessarily this year. And it's not that he doesn't look like a great player, although tonight he struggled a little bit. He just doesn't seem like he wants this to be his team, as weird as that sounds. And that's the weirdest part of this whole dynamic is he seems to be taking, I don't want to say a backseat, but certainly not a front seat.
He does sort of like the Jimmy Butler thing where it's like, I got 23 points. I can average that for the regular season, but then the playoffs, I'm going to go off. The difference between Kawhi and Jimmy Butler is that Kawhi gets hurt in the playoffs every year. And that's the problem. Is he can only really do it for 1.5 series usually. So I don't know. The Clippers, I've been watching them a lot lately. I think they're starting to come together a little bit. Like, it's still very your turn, my turn, but it's less your turn, my turn, like isolation heavy. It's okay. We're going to post up Kawhi. We're going to play out of the post with Kawhi for 2 straight possessions. And then we'll get James Harden involved in a pick and roll with Zubac. And then we're going to go back to Kawhi in the post. But at least it's like incorporating real sets and people moving and teammates and like Terrence Mann getting catch and shoot attempts and stuff like that. So it's better than like the isolation heavy stuff. So I haven't given up on the Clippers, although I've not ever really been in on the Clippers. I still don't think that they're a real contender. We did our contenders draft last week and we didn't even talk about the Clippers. Like, we literally didn't even mention them. They didn't even come up in the entire show. But I feel better about what they are now than versus when they first made the Harden deal, whatever that's worth. I don't know. Playoff team. You're right. You made a good point. It was
at the moment. Let me see here. At the moment, they have a 20% chance at a top 4 pick. They owe it to Oklahoma City, but he said winning a championship, their odds significantly higher of getting a top 4 pick at the moment.
Wow, that's rough.
That they can hand over to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Here's Shea and a top 4 pick. Thanks. Let's move on. Are the Heat actually a fast-paced team? We talk about a shootout in Miami next. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. It's a money line, guys. It's just picking the winner. It's that easy, and you get $150 back in bonus bets. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Got a bunch more games to get to here, Adam. And we're going to hit like rapid fire, go through a bunch of these fun ones from Thursday night here in a second. But I want to go to Miami.
Okay.
Well, I'm already in Miami. The Heat won a shootout, storming back to beat the Pacers 142-132 after trailing by trailing by 13 points early in the game. They trailed for more than 3 quarters for the whole game. Jimmy Butler scores 36, Tyrese Halliburton with a career-high 44. This was a fun one, Adam. I was at this game. I have my own takeaways. The Heat get the lead early in the fourth quarter, and they do not look back after that. But what was the funnest part for you?
Well, all year, because I know you cover the Heat, and all year I've been surprised at how much you don't like Jaime Jaquez. And I was like, I guess I'm going to make him my guy. If you don't like him, he's my guy, then I'll take him. And then tonight, what do you know? This guy takes over in the fourth quarter. Best player on the court for like a 5-minute stretch or so. The dude was balling. I just love his game. After the game, I know Coach Spo was raving about him and just how mature he is and the pace that he plays with and how he approaches the game. And you could see it, man. This guy does not carry himself like a rookie. I know that's overused a lot, but the way he moves and the way he just he's not timid. He's not looking around like, okay, don't screw up. He's just like, oh, we're playing basketball. Here's what I do. I love this dude. He's my guy.
I think he could be our guy. I think he's going to be the Locked On NBA guy.
Okay. There you go.
It was Herb Jones last year.
Yeah. All right.
Locked On NBA Fridays, and I think we could share him. I just did a whole 35-minute episode about Jaime Jaquez on the Locked On Heat feed.
I'm gonna go listen to it, man. I love this dude.
You mentioned like you hear us all the time, like he doesn't play like a rookie and stuff. So in training camp, the Heat had training camp, and we're there and covering it, and you could just hear like, oh, he doesn't play like a rookie. He's a vet. He plays like a vet, and I just like you as a reporter, you just roll your eyes. You're like, yeah, I've heard that before. It's a cliche. And then you watch him play, and you're like, oh, this is what they meant. I get it. He missed a 3-pointer early in this game, and to your point, like the way he moves, the way he responds to things, like a lot of rookies would just like take that 3-pointer and be like, I missed that one. It was open. That's on me. Like he just takes the shot, doesn't even care if it goes in. He's like, that was the right shot in the flow of the offense. Just got right back and played defense, and I loved it. You mentioned how he was the best player on the court for a portion. The first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, he scored 10 points. In the first 4 minutes of that quarter against the Pacers, he had the bucket that got the Heat the lead for the first time in the game, and they did not trail after that. Yeah. The Heat flipped. This was such an interesting game because I thought like this was a not just a clashing of two good teams in the East, but a clashing of styles, right? You have literally the fastest paced team in the league with Indiana, and then a team with Miami, who I think was like fourth slowest going into this game. Yeah. And I was kind of like, whichever style kind of takes hold in the first few minutes is probably going to be the team that wins. And Miami figured out a way to play the Pacers style. They played at a fast pace. It was a season high 142 points for Miami in this one. And they did it in large part because in the second half, Jimmy Butler, 16 points in the third quarter, kind of flipped the game for them. Played basically wide receiver. He was like, again, Miami sports, Tyreek Hill for the Heat at the end of this game, where he was just flying down the court, getting deep seal position in the post, and then just be like, okay, the Pacers aren't stopping me going up, and then getting fouled. And he went to the line 10 times in the third quarter. And that really set the tone for the Heat, I thought, in the second half. And then Jimmy Butler comes out after making this comeback, erasing most of that lead. And then Jaime Jaquez is like, I got this baton, man. Let me run with it. And he just did the same stuff. Like he was literally doing a Jimmy Butler impression at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Like, who does this? It was wild. And he's got like this like cool in-between game where he's got like the footwork and all this stuff. Like 22-year-olds aren't supposed to care about mid-range. They're not supposed to care about footwork. They're not supposed to care about the nuances of this game. That stuff's dead. It's all about three-pointers. It's all about running the floor, fast pace, Adam. That's what we're all about now. Not Jaime. That's an old soul there, and I love it.
But he can play fast though too.
Apparently.
This is the thing is, he can get up and down and do different things. I think my only other note from this game is that he had 45 free throws, and the Pacers, they're not going to be a good defense. It's not their bread and butter. But you can be disciplined in the things that can beat you, and fouling is one of them. And to put Jimmy Butler on the line 20 times, to put the team on the line 45 times, and tip your hat to the Miami Heat. 38 of 45. That's good for 84.5% as a team. That's really good on an insane volume of free throw attempts that they earned. The Pacers just have to be more disciplined there.
It was the free throws for Miami, and the Pacers go 4 for 27 from three-point range in the second half. They were too reliant on the three-point shot when it wasn't going. And Miami has the other options, right? Like they can get to the paint, they can get to the foul line, like you mentioned. The Pacers, just talk about them briefly before we move on. They're so much fun to watch. Top 5 league pass team, easy. Tyrese Halliburton
they're number one.
Like, yeah, they might. Yeah, definitely.
They're number one because not only are they fun, they turn the other team fun.
This is the point. They are an elite offense. Their biggest problem is they turn every other team they face into an elite offense. Miami coming into this game, an offensive rating of 112.7 points
how they
per
did
100
tonight.
possessions. Awful. Tonight, 135.2. That's bananas. That's bananas. That's insane. I never in my life thought a Jimmy Butler team would score 142 points in a game. Lo and behold, the Pacers are like, here you go. All right.
We didn't mention 44 for Tyrese Halliburton, by the way. 44.
I mentioned it briefly.
Oh, okay.
Career high for him, 44. He's awesome. I love
awesome.
that guy. All right, rapid fire time. We're going to go around the league to some of the other fun games from Thursday night. Let's start with the Hornets beating the Nets 129-128. Terry Rozier, 37 points for him and 13 assists. Cam Thomas, who can't score fewer than 20 points whenever he's on the court. Impossible. He had 26 points for Brooklyn. The Hornets, they shot 58% from 3, which was a big swing factor in this one. What was your takeaway?
This was a fun game because you had Williams going up against Claxton. It was Mark Williams and Claxton. They were kind of similar, like they're lanky, skinny guys, roll to the rim, athletic, long. It almost felt like the Spider-Man meme game, the two teams kind of, playing against each other. And then you even have Cam Thomas and Terry Rozier, some similarities there. But no, Scary Terry, man, he went off in the clutch of this game. He was
no
incredible.
LaMelo in this one.
No LaMelo.
No
and he took over that role, man. He played really dynamic down the stretch.
Good win for them. Not a great night for Cleveland. Major letdown following a solid win the other night. Their worst loss this season, 103-95 to the mighty Trailblazers, Adam. They pulled off their second road win this week. Your thoughts on this one?
My thoughts are this is a really bad loss, man. You're at home. And it wasn't, I wasn't impressed with Portland, and I don't mean that to be disparaging, but this wasn't one of those games where it's like, you tip your hat to them. They just made some, like the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls they felt like a team of destiny tonight in some weird way.
Chicago Bulls, a team of destiny.
The team of destiny for one night. The Portland Trailblazers did not feel like the team of destiny. Cleveland just didn't get it done. I don't know. I'm unimpressed with them. They sit at 10-9, and this was a team we expected, elite from Mobley. Well, that hasn't happened. Donovan Mitchell, what's the story with him? He goes 7 of 20 tonight. I don't think he was very good tonight. So
the team that should have been a contender, right? They had such a great regular season last year, then the flame out in the Knicks, and it feels like they haven't ever gotten over that playoff loss to New York, and they've backtracked. They got booed today in their own arena, and so and I don't blame Cavs fans for it because expectations were so high, and they've not even come close. And this isn't even like, the eye test is something where I feel like the record will flip at some point. Like, no, the eye test doesn't look great either. Like
they feel like 10-9. That's what they feel.
That's what, exactly. Yeah, the eye test and the record, it is what it is. Final thing here with their loss to the Knicks on Thursday, the Pistons become the first team in 8 years to go winless for a full month of the season. Not just that, Adam. They've also now lost 16 straight. I would ask you if it was time to blow up the Pistons because that's what we do, but they've already blown it up. Like they're already blowing up. They're still just rebuilding.
What do you do?
So it's like
here?
There's nothing. Yeah. So it's like they're just really young. They stink right now, but there's talent there. And I don't know. I'm not a Pistons fan, so I'm not freaking out. But it just 16 losses in a row is a lot.
They were a team that was going to rebuild and try to get another top pick. So it's not wholly unexpected.
All going to plan.
But no, because you didn't expect to be this bad. You could have been 6 wins better and still been in the plan going according, to what you wanted. But of all those numbers you threw out, the one that's most jarring to me, they've only won 4 of their last 100 games. They are 4-96. I think I saw that on the timeline. So is that not right?
True.
I don't think that is
that
true.
That sounds like it can't be true.
That can't be true.
But it might as well be true.
It sounds like it's true. They have 2 wins.
The fact that I was like, wow, at first is
they're 17, last year. So between last year and this year, not even 20 wins. You're looking at that is like 20 and 80 though between the two. That's rough, man.
That's
rough.
That's losing 80% of your games if my math is right on that.
I'll give you one note though on this team though. I've always liked Isaiah Stewart, aka Beef Stew.
Yeah,
I don't know what they've done to him.
Do we need to do a hashtag free beef stew?
The free beef stew. They've turned him into this 3-point shooter. He's doing pretty well. I haven't seen the numbers recently, but I know he was hovering at a surprising like 40% for a while there. But this is a guy that the reason I loved him is he was tough. He was physical. He played that elbow-y game. And they've got him out here shooting jumpers and stuff now that went away where I'm like, I know they need the spacing, but him of all guys to be
and
the
Bojan Bogdanovic is going to come back possibly this weekend. Reports today about that. He's not he's a good player. He is not saving the Pistons. He is not turning them from
road games,
20 of their last 100 games to whatever. So free beef stew, free Bojan, free Monty Morris. Like, just get him out of there too. He should be on a winning team. He hasn't played yet because he's hurt too, but whatever. All right. The in-season tournament was a success. I think. What was it?
18-82 in their last 100 games. That's the real stat.
Let's talk about the in-season. I'm so done. I'm done talking about Detroit. The in-season tournament. We already have some improvements that we'd like to suggest. That's coming up next here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by GameTime. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. GameTime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. My favorite part of GameTime, it's the views from your seat at the venue, especially if you're in an out of town coming in from a concert or a sporting event or something. You don't know those arenas or those stadiums. You want the views to know from your seat to know that you're getting the best possible seats for you. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. GameTime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And with zone deals, you pick the section, and GameTime picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. And the GameTime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. It's Friday, which means it's time to count down to the weekend. What do you have for us today, Adam?
Well, the in-season tournament, Les, was a big hit. Lots of people very into it. But was it perfect? No. There were some hiccups along the way. But
we're all about perfection here.
We are, man. This show, we try to make it perfect. So I have come up with a couple suggested improvements for next year.
Let's do it.
Number 5, and maybe I'm just getting old, Wes. The courts, I don't mind the intention. I don't even mind that they did them this year to make a splash, right? It's the introduction of something. We wanted to catch everyone's attention. They did that. It became a conversation point. But next year, you don't need to do that. Scale it back a little. I would say if a regular court is a 1 and the courts this year are a 10, let's go to like a 3. Let's go to like a 3, maybe a 4. I'll give you a 4.
Yeah.
Maybe a big trophy, maybe one color streak somewhere.
The big trophy in the middle, that does it for me. Oh, that's a giant trophy thing in the middle of the court. That to me works. You also have the broadcast that could do any number of things on the broadcast itself, right? It doesn't have to actually be on the court. kind of disrupting the game. And so look, mission accomplished. Everybody was started talking about the courts. It went viral. Congrats. But yeah, let's scale it back for next year.
When you think of it, it reminds me almost of the COVID year, like when stadiums, there was nobody in the stadiums, you know, and whenever you see highlights from those games, you're like, oh yeah, that was that brief moment in time when this thing was happening. That's what these courts feel like. They just feel like something wrong. They make me feel like something happened that's bad.
I'm not anti like bright colors. But I am like I can't see the ball or what's happening. Like the big bright reds and the oranges.
We're so washed, these complaints. And they have the music so loud, and you know, and it's just, what are they doing?
What's with the t-shirt cannon? I don't get it. There's a fix. Maybe it's just the stripe down the middle. Maybe it's just like something that should be uniform. But you know, more subtle for sure.
What if it was with a different ball? What if they played with the ABA ball? Then we're like, why are they playing with that ball? Oh, it's a tournament game. That's why they've got the ABA ball.
Maybe something like that.
Number 4. We know it's in Las Vegas.
Oh boy.
But you know what else is in Las Vegas, Wes?
I do.
It's having itself a moment. The Sphere. The tournament should be inside the Sphere. Go all out.
It should be in the Sphere.
Everything should be in the Sphere.
Everything should also be in the Sphere. That's how you make the tournament games stand out. They're all in the Sphere.
Can you imagine? I mean, you make the Sphere look like a basketball, like bada bing, bada boom. I'm telling you, who would not tune into that? We want to talk about ratings, bonanza. The game inside the Sphere would be the most watched basketball game of all time.
So I've never been to the Sphere. I've never been in it. I'm imagining I would assume that there's enough space for a basketball court in it.
Didn't do my research on that. I don't know.
Does not matter. It's just we're idea men here. That's what we're about.
Build a bigger Sphere.
Every time one team took the possession, you just made the Sphere look like their home city.
Ooh.
So if it's like, it was like Miami versus Denver, for instance, like every time Miami had the ball, it would just be like beaches and like beautiful palm trees and all that. And every time Denver had possession, it's like mountains and Denver and all that stuff. Like it would be really cool.
Man, we got to get a hold of Adam Silver here. Number 3 change. New name. I hate typing in season tournament. I hate it. And then when people refer to it as the NBA Cup, something doesn't sound right. We got to get
the IST was a thing for a while, and it took me 2 days. It took me like a while to figure out what people were talking about. They're like, "Oh, the IST," and I was like, "What? The what?"
That's the Istanbul airport, I believe. It's IST. That's what I think.
Maybe that's what they were referring to.
Yeah,
the NBA Istanbul
airport. You get confused. You're like, which one are they referencing? You got to see the context. No, it needs a name, and it needs a snappy name. I know what's going to happen. Everybody sees what's going to happen. It's going to be the Taco Bell tournament or something. It's going to be, they're leaving it blank for a sponsor to swoop in and make this, whatever. But I would just much rather it have an actual name, the Bill Russell Cup or the Bill Russell Tourney or something like that. But in-season tournament, that's disgusting.
No more dashes. I'm with you. Let's go.
Number 2, the wild card should go to the top overall record. So one of the things that happened on this last day was that we're following the point differentials and know who's getting in this scenario. And you get a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves who go 3-1 in their pool. They have the top record, but because they were in a death pool, what do you call it? Group of death. They're SOL for losing one little game by just barely. Meanwhile, you get the Lakers and the Suns, who they were always going to make this. They had to go up against the Utah Jazz, the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Portland Trailblazers. They both of those teams beat all 3 of those teams by 30 points every game in SmackDown. So this point differential thing, I have a feeling it's going to happen every year where there's going to be one group of death, one pretty hard group, and one group of a bunch of cupcakes. And then those 2 teams are going to be the one that win the wild card. Instead, reward the team with the best overall record at that point and make them the wild card.
I agree that the tiebreaker needs to be fixed. The point differential thing isn't great, and the groups need some working on, right? Also, it's impossible to keep track of your group. Like, it's only for this in-season tournament, and that's it. But I actually, what if we just don't have a wild card? And what if we just had, the winner of each group, and you just had more groups? If you wanted those 4 teams, you just have 4 groups and be like, all right, enough. Then just whoever wins the group, and then you move on. and you don't have to deal necessarily with the tiebreakers, or maybe you have to still deal with tiebreakers within the group. But
I feel like no matter what, there's going to be
stuff.
tiebreakers. We're talking about such tiny groups that there's almost
Yeah.
certainly going to be some kind of, splitting the hairs here. I like the idea of 8 teams advancing. I don't mind it, and that allows for 3 rounds, so it's kind of perfect. But it just feels weird, the teams that got to advance and some of the teams that didn't, because you're like, well, why is that impressive? The Phoenix Suns, like because they beat the Memphis Grizzlies that didn't have any of their players playing by 40 points, so they advanced.
I like that it's going to be different than maybe even the playoff teams. Like, I like that the Pacers are in this, right? Like,
totally.
It'll be really interesting because if it was a 7-game series, the Pacers would have no shot against probably any of these teams. But this is like more March Madness-y, where it's like the Pacers play such a wildly different style than everybody else. Like, there's a chance that they just take all these teams kind of by surprise, Milwaukee, Boston, whoever it is that they have to end up playing, and they just sort of win and just kind of run away, literally almost, to the championship in the Sphere. Like, it's like,
that's right.
But in a playoff series, they would have absolutely no shot. So I kind of like that it's a little different like that.
The other thing, and I will say, the point differential thing was not confusing to figure out, but it was confusing to follow, because every game that would change so much. You're like, okay, so now this team needs that and this. So it was easy to conceptualize.
I like the level of engagement that they accomplished.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you were engaged, but it was a little too confusing. Like, I also don't need spreadsheets for it. Like, where's the middle ground,
Well, here's the thing, Wes. Guys like you and me, we were engaged, and we were talking to other people that were engaged. But every time I would step outside of the basketball diehard sphere to just the casual fans, everybody would say, I have no idea what's going on. So I think that you had to invest to understand it. And most people, we have to remember, don't invest like that. But it did lead to some other imbalances, which is some teams finished their tournament play early and didn't know what their target number was. And other teams finished on the last day and knew, we need to score X amount of points to advance. And that creates an unfair advantage as well, which is why all of the games should end at the same time on the last day. That means you have to have 15 games, tournament games, all playing at the exact same time. So nobody has the advantage of knowing how many points they need to win by. Everybody just goes out and tries to win by as much as they can. But the league won't do that, because who wants to forfeit all that television money when you have all the games happening at the same time? Well, don't worry, Wes. I have a solution. NBA Red Zone. What are you selling television rights? That last day, you have a giant broadcast. We can get like Kevin Garnett or somebody on it. He's somebody
like a Manning cast kind of thing.
A little Manning cast. And all you're doing is tossing it to, the key sequences in every game. So you just sit there and watch all the best play.
And get that guy that does like the elections with the khakis on CNN or whatever, and he can like break down like the point differentials in the charts, and he's like, this is what the Bucks need to score this many points to do this. And you're like, what's going on?
Whole thing, we're polling in Iowa right now. Here's what it is.
It's a great idea. We're polling in Iowa. That'll do it for us today. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Everydayers, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and Odyssey and wherever it is that you get your podcast. The show is going to be back on Monday with the biggest stories from the NBA weekend. Until next Friday, you can find me over at Locked On Heat and Adam over on Locked On Nuggets. Have a great weekend.